the store that would have that kind of reaction.
And this was Harrod's reputation at the time. You could buy anything you wanted, and so you went in to the exotic pets department and saw...
And there were 2 lions there, Christian and his sister, 3 months old, totally irresistible.
But very different personalities.
Very. Well, she was resistible. He wasn't.
Right, so she was spitting...
She was understandably upset. They were a draw card for Christmas shoppers, and but he had a very even nature and a marvellous personality. He was coping with it much better.
Now, you don't know what happened to her, do you? You don't know where she...
Well, we do, but she disappeared.
Yeah. So, Christian, of course, this lion with the fantastic temperament and personality, you decided that he must be yours. And
we thought also we could do something better for him, even just on a temporary basis.
Yes, knowing that it would be temporary because he's going to grow very fast and turn into a giant lion, which on the King's Road is just unacceptable. So he was quite expensive to purchase. I think in today's money it works out to be something like sort of £3,000.
Yes, even more.
More than that. And so you were working at a furniture shop at the time, and
fortuitously,
yes.
It was called Sophisticat.
Yes.
So the owners, we had to persuade them to allow us to have him, because we looked for a flat for a while, but no one was very interested in having us in a lion. So we persuaded the owners of the shop where we were working, and Sophisticat, still there, still exists, now on Wandsworth Bridge Road, and that we persuaded them that it would be, you know, applicable.
Well, the late 60s were a very different time, because you could purchase Christian without really any questions asked at all.
No, and we don't endorse it. You know, since 1973 with the Endangered Species Act, it is illegal, and we, you know, fully agree. We don't encourage people to have lions.
Absolutely.
Or other exotic animals.
It was a very different time.
Yeah.
So how did you set about looking after him?
There was no lion manual.
No,
we just do instincts with animals or people. You play it by ear.
These pictures are unbelievable.
But we had to be one step ahead of him all the time, because he grew very quickly. His teeth and claws were very sharp. Very quickly he was too big for us to handle, but we never let him really realize it.
And whereabouts did you walk him? We
had a garden, fortunately, just up the road from us at the World's End, which was actually a part of Moravian Close. It's a walled garden, and marvellous, you've got the clip there. And so it was completely safe for him in there, and as you can see, just kicking footballs, chasing him around. And they don't need a huge amount of exercise, lions. They're quite lazy.
Yeah.
So he would be there for half an hour running around sometimes, and that'd be enough. He'd be happy to come back to the shop. He became something of an attraction, didn't he? The people coming into the shop just to see him.
Well, naturally enough, yeah.
Quite famous people. Dinah Rigg, Mia Farrow, all coming in.
Mia Farrow. George Lazenby wouldn't, though.
He wouldn't come in?
He wouldn't.
James Bond was frightened.
James Bond was frightened.
So obviously we get to the point where here he is in the back of the Burke. Look at that. Sensational. Being driven. That must have really turned some heads, I would have thought.
And that didn't happen very often, actually.
No, that was a bit of a show shot.
He had a very stable life, and that's, I think, why it was such a success. He had a...
So eventually it gets to the point where he is growing into a beast that is very difficult to contain safely.
35 pounds when we got him, and he was heading for 180 pounds. But he was 185 pounds at a year old.
Yes.
But the trouble, we were aware of the problems before that, 160-ish. He's getting a big animal. So how did you set about reintroducing him? Very, very difficult task. First of all, you've got to get him to Africa, and then he has to be successfully reintroduced into the wild. Not an easy task. No, not for a fifth-generation domesticated animal, but fortunately we had the introduction to George Adamson, who'd rehabilitated Elsa. But even he said, look, Elsa was born in Africa, she knew the smells of Africa, she had certain immunity. Christian, we didn't know, 5 generations domesticated. So how long did it take? Because you went over initially, did you go with him?
Yes. Yes.
So you were there for a couple of weeks. To be
acclimatized.
Friendly faces, people that he recognized. How did he take to the new sights and smells of Africa?
Well, immediately he fitted in very well, and none of his instincts were impaired, really. And George had more reservations about us rather than Christian.
Did he? Why?
A couple of Aussies.
What are you doing with this?
Yeah.
But as you just saw in that clip, quite quickly,
Christian knew that he had to submit to Boy. That was the mature male that George already had. But it was a bit of a shock for Christian. He hadn't seen his father for 9 months, which was the last lion he'd seen.
Yes.
And although he was a magnificent lion as well, he was in a zoo, and here is this alien lion who was determined to show Christian where he was in the pecking order, which is at the bottom.
And Christian knew how to behave, to submit properly.
Otherwise he would have been in trouble then.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
oh,
and
yes.
he was in trouble anyway. You know, it took quite a long time before he was accepted.
The clip, so now we come to you have to, your hearts are broken, you have to leave him behind, and
well, not totally
they weren't broken.
No.
We were just so relieved we'd found this perfect solution. It was sad to leave him, but he, had the chance to return to the wild, which he did successfully. So we were just very grateful for that.
And the myths that surround this clip that ended up with these millions and millions and millions of hits on YouTube, it was about a year later, 1971, when you went back. And this is this extraordinary moment. Was there a doubt in your mind when he was walking towards you that he wouldn't react in the way that he did?
Well, it was the exuberance that surprised us. We knew he'd still love us, we knew he'd know us, and George felt the same as well.
Yes, George said, look, they've got wonderful memories, but even he had never seen as Ace says, the exuberance of this and the excitement. As you can see here, he's completely overexcited, and by the time he hit us, he was going at quite a pace.
Yes.
And he's nearly 300 pounds here. And so it was a euphoric moment. Euphoric moment. Yes.
And then, so that was the incredible moment of realization that he could remember you. But gradually he is being reintroduced into the wild. He's away from the camp more. The visits become less and less. And you went back in 1972, didn't you?
Yeah. That was it turned out to be the final time we saw him.
And the footage that we've got here, you've had in the bottom of your drawer for 30-odd years.
Never
this
looked
is
at
the first time it's ever been shown on British television.
Home movie, really.
And
he'd come in the night before. We were there 3 days, and then he came in the night before, where we had a very excited greeting again, but that wasn't filmed. He was much more mature.
This was filmed by Tony Fitzjohn, who's the field director of the George Adamson Trust, who are perpetuating George's memory and his work with conservation. And so he just got the 16mm camera, so it's
home
movie time. But that you see how the size of it.
Yeah.
And that was, as you say, that when he left that morning, left the camp, and smelling of humans and cigarettes and whiskey, and went back to his lady who was out in the bush.
They were not best pleased.
No. And then that was it. He was never seen again.
It was not exactly the next day.
It's
the last time we saw him. George saw him a couple of times over the next few months, but he was becoming all the time more and more independent. He was able to defend him or to protect himself against the wild lions, who were very aggressive. Not much game there for them. And he moved north, and we think into Mayuru National Park. George heard him mating, and that's quite something.
Yeah,
so we hope his genes are there, and we don't know what happened to him, but there was never any negative reports about, a magnificent, possibly the largest lion in Kenya being trophied or anything. So
what a remarkable relationship. How lucky you were, just for that sort of window of time to share something like that.
And a wonderful introduction to Africa and conservation issues, which are even more crucial than they were then, because there's only a third of the lions alive in the world now that there were when Christian was alive, when Christian was rehabilitated.
Well, the documentary is on tomorrow. It's at 8 o'clock. The Lion Cub from Harrods, and it's on Channel 5. Absolutely not to be missed. A remarkable story. And gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Well, this time we accurately told the story.
Yes, good.
Finally got it out. Terrific. But it will be on tomorrow, of course. After the break.